Welcome to Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, brought to you by the experts at Merryfield Garden Center. Join us as we discover beautiful plants, new trends, and exciting ideas for your landscape. So let's get growing together. Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, bringing out the best in your garden.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Merryfield's Gardening Advisor. So glad you could join us this morning. I'm your host, Debbie Warhurst-Cap, and along with me today, I am very proud to have Michael Fay, who is a plant specialist at Merryfield, a certified arborist, and new title, Dad.
Yep.
Michael and his wife, Catherine, just had a new baby boy, and we've got a picture to show you. I'll let you introduce him. We got a picture?
As soon as that
cutie
comes
up, isn't he cute?
There he is. That's our newborn baby boy, 2 weeks old yesterday. His name's Cedar John Nicholas Fay. Weighed 10 pounds, 5 ounces at birth.
Ah, big guy.
Big boy. Like a 6-month-old being
That's right,
born.
I know. That's nice in a way.
It is nice.
They don't feel so fragile.
It's nice, except he doesn't fit in any of his newborn clothes.
I was figuring that.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you.
Well, we've got an interesting title today, and I'm going to let you explain what it is. We're talking about Beat the Heat. So
Beat the heat, basically, today we really wanted to talk about, and given anybody who just saw the weather, you know we're not having exactly the temperatures that we typically do this time of year, but given that it's August, we wanted to talk about plants that are going to survive and thrive in the heat of August and the humidity, things that are going to do really well and provide you some color in the landscape.
And shade, but we haven't needed the shade so much this year.
We haven't needed it necessarily, but it's nice to know what's available. Right. So in the future you can opt to plant things that'll provide you shade and be tolerant of the heat. And
we do have a few more weeks of August, so who knows?
That's right.
But
That's right. We're not out of the dark yet.
It has been a wonderful, wonderful year. So we've got a lot to talk about. We've got 59 pictures to show you today of beautiful plants that you can add to your collection. So we're not going to be taking phone calls today. And before we get started, just wanted to do 2 quick announcements. One, as I mentioned last week, the tent sale is continuing at all 3 locations, but it's starting to wind down. So you might want to get in there and take advantage of some of those bargains while you still can. And we sent our seminar booklet to the printer yesterday. So they start on the first September 6th, I believe it is. Yes, September 6th. And so we will be getting those mailed out probably in a week or so. So if you're not on our mailing list yet, you still have time to sign up. So just come into the store or go to the website, merryfieldgardencenter.com, because the booklet not only has the entire seminar schedule for fall and the holidays, it also has some great coupons and some great gardening tips. So you'll want to take advantage of that. So that's our announcement for the day.
And that tent sale, you can find some good bargains in there. I got a piece of statuary and some good literature last week. So.
All right. And it's changing every day.
Every day.
Something goes, something new comes in. So it's fun. So, all right. We are going to divide these plants up kind of into categories today and just kind of flow through. So
we started out basically, we're going to talk about annuals, perennials, some shrubs, a few trees, and then a little bit of tropicals that can also be used as annuals going through the spring, summer, and fall. So really we'll just go ahead and start with annuals. And first one we have here is Dusty Miller, which is a really popular plant in the landscape. It's a great color. You can get that nice blue tinge out of the foliage, which is pretty difficult to get in a landscape. So anytime you get blue color, it's priceless. You can see it kind of has a little bit of a powdery covering on the foliage, which gives it its silvery blue tinge. But a great texture, really nice soft plant, good color in the landscape, good contrast with other things.
You almost want to just feel those leaves all the time.
You do. It's like a lamb's ear where you you just want to be petting it all the time.
Right. Okay. Our next one?
Next one is Coleus, and that's perfect because Coleus and Dusty Miller you'll frequently see planted together. This is just one type of Coleus. There are many different varieties.
Oh, yes.
That's a great one to show what a splash of color it can be. It's also going to put out bright purple flowers out of the top of it as it's in the mint family. But there's so many different types of Coleus, and there's sun and shade Coleus. A lot of people don't realize sometimes you can plant Coleus in the shade and still get that color out of it. But Coleus is a fantastic one to beat the heat and plant in the summer sun.
Right. It is amazing the various colors and textures and looks of that of the coleus?
There are some really fantastic new additions. Lantana, this is another great one. Lantana, I love to put in containers. It's very drought tolerant. There's good color varieties. Again, this happens to be a yellow one. There are others that are going to have a lot more orange in them. There's even some varieties that have a little bit of red in them, but a really good container plant.
Right. I love the contrast in the brightness of the bloom and the color of the leaves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Million Bells, very popular
Petunias have come a long way.
Yes, petunias have come a long way, and we were just talking the other day about all the different varieties of petunias and supertunias and wave petunias. Million Bells happens to be one of my favorites. I really like the purple varieties, as you can see here. There's some reds, there's yellows. But Million Bells I like because the flowers are so dense on them and they're much smaller, so it seems like you have a more mature plant, a bigger stand of blossoming than you might on some other varieties.
Gotcha. Okay, let's do one or two more. Yeah.
Parrot's Beak, this is Annuals manager Stephanie's favorite, which is one of the reasons I want to highlight.
Cool.
Really cool texture of the foliage. It's got that powdery covering on the leaves again, so you have that little silvery blue color. And then, just as it's named, the flowers that come out look like a parrot's beak and are bright, fiery orange to scarlet red and very attractive. Really good spreading ground cover in the landscape. It'll stay kind of local, but it's a fantastic plant for color.
That's great. Okay, and then okay, one more set.
So this is my personal favorite. This is purslane. If we could flip to the next picture here, you'll see how durable purslane really is. Purslane is a type of portulaca. This is in between my driveway and my next door neighbor's driveway. I came home one day, I had it planted beautifully, and he thought it was on his property and had marble chipped it in.
Oh no.
And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to be able to plant here? So this is what I chose, and you can see how wonderfully it's doing.
Yeah.
That's in October, so it's still blooming from spring all the way through fall. And the next picture is my mother-in-law's brick planter at her home where there's no rainfall. She's out of town frequently, so it's very difficult for her to get water to it.
Right.
And it just absolutely thrives there. A month later, that entire stand was full of blooms. Of course, the picture that I had of that was a little blurry, so we opted for this one. But nothing else that she tried in that spot would grow there.
Wow, wow, that's great. Well, we want to remind you, let's hold on that. Come on back to us for a second. We're going to take a break in just a minute, but I did want to mention, those were all annuals. And
correct.
What's great is you can come into the garden center anytime, and if your annuals are looking a little sad, little summer worn, come in and replace them.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. If you've made it through a good chunk of the season, sometimes things just need to be refreshed a little bit.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about Beat the Heat today, even though we haven't had a whole lot of heat necessarily.
It's been quite the cool summer.
It's been a gorgeous summer. Michael Fay is with me today, and we are talking about plants that can tolerate the heat or provide you some shade. So we talked about annuals in the first segment.
We talked about annuals, and now we're going to move on to some perennials. Perennials, obviously the difference between annuals and perennials typically is annuals are not going to survive through the wintertime. You'd have to replant them. Perennials are going to not only survive the wintertime, but may come back more full and more densely the next year. Rudbeckia or Black-Eyed Susan, this is one of my favorite perennials. It's a fantastic native plant, really good attractor for birds and butterflies. You're going to get birds more once the plant goes to seed, but you can see the lovely flowers on it here and how densely it's blooming. Wonderful thing about Rudbeckia is it will come back more dense and more full the following year. It can even reseed a little bit locally there, and that adds to it, not just coming back from perennial rootstock. But
how long is their bloom time?
Oh gosh, Rudbeckia can go for quite a while. I mean, usually they'll start late spring, early summer, and you'll see them go all the way even in through fall. This is Rudbeckia fulgida. There's another type that may bloom even starting a little bit later, but Rudbeckia is quite a long bloom time.
And that's in the sunflower family.
That is in the sunflower family, as a few of them that we're going to speak about are. But Rudbeckia is a fantastic plant. And as I said, when it goes to seed and you've got the seed heads on there, a lot of people tend to cut it down. If you leave it there, you might get some really nice goldfinch out of it.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's great. Okay, next one. Ah, daylilies.
Daylily,
Yeah,
and this is a
daylilies.
very popular one, Stella d'Oro. You know, one of the things we were talking about the other day is how many different types of daylilies there are. I chose this one because this is definitely one of the more popular varieties. But
kind of your classic standard. I think.
You have everything from red daylilies to ones that are variegated, have bicolor with red and yellow in them, and all sorts of different color options. Heights it can vary as well. But Stella d'Oro is a great one. This one, you know, one of the wonderful things about it is it goes into bloom very early and will keep going for a long time as well.
Great.
Butterfly weed, Asclepias tuberosa. This is another fantastic one. This picture is from my garden at home. You can see the green and gold on the ground behind
flower.
it. Asclepias is a fantastic flower. Now, Asclepias is a really good butterfly attractant. So this is going to bring your monarchs. This is what's going to attract your tiger swallowtails and your eastern black swallowtails. A very, very aggressive local perennial. So it's going to stay right where it is, but it's going to reseed in that spot. And you'll have the plant coming back twice as dense every single year.
And it's going to provide food, right?
It's great. It's great food. The foliage is food for the larva of the butterfly, for monarchs specifically, and then the flowers will produce nectar for butterflies as well. So you'll get both caterpillars and butterflies in your garden with Asclepias.
I was telling Michael, I hate a plant called weed, but that's like the cool term now, right?
Well, you know, you get a lot of the native plants that have weed in the name, butterfly weed. We'll talk about Joe Pye weed in a second here. And it does. It generally has a little bit of a negative connotation to it, but you know, that's just a common name, and we try to move past it. There's a butterfly bush, there's a butterfly plant. There's got to be a butterfly weed in there somewhere. So,
okay.
Next one is coneflower, everybody's favorite. Echinacea, another fantastic sunflower family member. You can see the proof is in the pudding right there. The bee is on the plant. You know, coneflowers are fantastic, just like the Rudbeckia. Sure, you're going to get really long bloom time. You're going to get some bees and butterflies on them now. But then once they fade and the flower color is actually gone, if you leave those seed heads remaining in the wintertime, all through the winter, the seed heads can stay there, and you can get goldfinch out of it. In my front garden, we set up a camera in my front bay windows on a tripod, literally just in the wintertime, so that we can take pictures of all the goldfinch that we get. Very cool. So there's our other favorite plant with weed in the name, Joe Pye weed, Eupatorium, and this is Purpureum. Joe Pye weed's a great plant. It's definitely got some height to it. You know, you can see them get up to 4, 5, 6 feet tall. So it's a really good backdrop plant. Another fantastic one from the sunflower family. Really good for pollinator attraction again. But just a fantastic native plant. And you know, a few of these I haven't mentioned. All of the perennials we've discussed so far are native plants, but extremely durable. You'll find them growing in full sun from sun up till sundown. Like I said, because of the height, I would definitely use that as a backdrop in the garden. It wouldn't be something that I would put in front that would hide other things. Right. And we've got one on the set that's what, about 3 feet?
Yeah,
exactly. And that's just a little juvenile plant. Right. Heliopsis, or false sunflower, some people call it, and you can see exactly why. And you can see the sun glaring off of the petals in that picture. I mean, this is another fantastic sun-tolerant perennial, sun-loving perennial. And it does. It gives you that sunflower effect. Now, that bloom is probably only 3 or 4 inches diameter, but there are several different varieties of Heliopsis that are going to look very similar to that. We've got a few that are even orange.
And I think you said that variety is called Summer Sun.
That one is called, yes, Summer Sun, exactly.
That's great. But there are lots to choose from.
There are. Another favorite, hibiscus. So this is a perennial hibiscus. We'll talk about hibiscus a few more times throughout the show here. The perennial hibiscus are fantastic. You've got a lot of different foliage texture. You've got a lot of different flower colors. This one happened to be a great picture, which is why we use it.
I love this shot.
Yeah, Lord Baltimore is one of my favorites. It's a bright, beautiful red flower with a really nice textured leaf. Perennial hibiscus will typically go dormant in the wintertime back to their rootstock. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of a woody stalk for a few inches above the ground, but they should come back every year. This is a fantastic plant.
All right. And we're going to see hibiscus a little bit more throughout the show,
That is going to be a common reoccurring theme,
all right,
yes.
All right.
Red hot poker, Nephophia uvularia. Just cannot say enough about this plant. Really nice grassy texture. We have one on the set here that we can look at in a minute. But a great foliage plant. Like I said, it's kind of like an ornamental grass. And then you get these beautiful red hot poker blooms that are sticking out of it. And every year you'll see it getting more locally dense, and you'll get more and more bloom spikes out of it, and they hold for an incredibly long time.
Okay. Got time for one more? Let's see.
And Lewisia. This is Lewisia longipetala. There's a few different types of Lewisia, appropriately named after Lewis and Clark, who discovered it on their expedition across the country. Lewisia, another drought-tolerant, sun-tolerant perennial. And you can see the bloom there is extravagant. They have some really nice color varieties as well.
That's great. Okay. Well, I think we're going to take a little break and come back, and we'll finish up with the perennials and start on the shrubs.
Sounds great.
Okay. Stay tuned.
So that's the plant we were talking about earlier, Joe Pyeweed, Eupatorium. Like I was saying earlier, it's a fantastic native. It's going to get some good height to it, and is a long bloomer, is going to really soak up the sun. So that's a great plant to have in your perennial garden, especially if you've got you know, a native interest. But absolutely beautiful native to attract butterflies and bees.
Right.
And we've got another one right up here. I don't know if we could. Yeah, that's the Nephofia, the red hot poker. Now this one is actually a color variety that's got some white, a little pale, creamy yellow to it. But that's a really valuable thing when you're looking at different color varieties of plants. The one thing that's so nice about having some white color varieties is a lot of people don't think about it, but you do these moonlight gardens that you can go out and enjoy at night. And when you have different plant varieties that have white bloom colors, and you can introduce them to these moonlight gardens, and you can be outside enjoying your garden more in the evening time.
It was funny, we were talking in the break about, you know, our timing wasn't great on this topic, beat the heat, but these plants are just as gorgeous in the cooler temperatures too.
Absolutely.
And you've got the added bonus that they will stand the heat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't have to be 100 degrees for these plants to thrive. They're going to enjoy a little bit of a cooler break through the summer, just as any plants would.
Right.
So.
Okay, we got a couple more perennials to do.
Prickly pear. This is Opuntia humifusa. Opuntia prickly pear is a fantastic plant. Another native you will find naturally occurring in Virginia in some areas if you're lucky enough. But like I said, it's a fantastic native, and what a better way to get some texture into the garden than having a cactus. Right. I mean, what other hardy cacti do we have in this area? So that's a fantastic plant, and that bloom is actually going to get pretty good size. I mean, the plain species Opuntia humifusa will get to be a 6-8 inch diameter bloom, and then there's smaller varieties as well.
Wow. And nobody's going to try to take that plant out of the garden.
Well, just people who are interested in harvesting the prickly pear pads for eating purposes.
Okay. All right.
Passion flower, another fantastic edible.
This is a phenomenal
passion flower.
Plant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't say enough about how intricate the bloom is. It's a very quick growing vine. There are tropical varieties of passion flower, so I don't want you to be confused if you are to come into the garden center and you go into the greenhouse and see those varieties. There are perennial species as well. Passion flower is native to Virginia, and there's 2 different species that are native here, which we would carry outside in our perennial department. This is one of them, Passiflora incarnata. And passion flower, for those of you who are interested in edibles, does produce the passion fruit, and the leaves are also able to be used for tea.
Cool. All right.
And this is one of my favorite pictures. This is sedum. This is actually a picture from...
Where is that taken?
That's in between our annual and perennial greenhouse at Fair Oaks.
Wow.
And that's on the roof of the gazebo
Looks like there's a huge office building behind it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But that plant is so tolerant. I mean, that doesn't get 1 second of shade from sunup till sundown. It's on the roof there. There's next to no soil media except for the little moss that's developed around it. And that is actually, I took that picture late last summer when we started to get a little bit of cooler nights. So that's actually the plant starting to develop a little bit of fall color.
Oh, wow.
I took another picture about a month and a half, 2 months later when it was all of that orange red.
Very cool. All right. Okay. Now
so on to the shrubs.
That's right. We're transitioning.
And we'll start out with roses and shrub roses specifically. You know, shrub roses are fantastic for gardeners who really want roses in the garden but don't want to have to do all the care that might be involved with maintaining more of your classical traditional roses. But knockout roses are a fantastic plant. You can see a few of the different color varieties there with the blushing pink and the sunny yellow. Really nice, long blooming rose shrubs. You can have them blooming from April through October. Very tidy in the garden if you just do a little bit of pruning, maybe once or twice a year at most.
Yeah, it's so nice to have those varieties that are more easy care.
It is, it is. And if you want other color varieties or you'd like a different look, the carpet and drift roses are fantastic as well. Carpet and drift roses will typically stay a little bit lower growing than the knockouts will. They have a little bit more of a spreading habit as opposed to the knockouts really wanting to get taller.
Right.
But some of the color varieties that you can get from the carpets and drifts, you cannot out of the knockouts. So reason to opt for either variety.
Right. And then we have our classics.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one is Sentimental, which I believe Rob said was a Floribunda, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so Sentimental.
We both had our guesses.
Yeah, we did, but Debbie's husband is the expert there. But Sentimental is a great one. There are so many different varieties of roses, and you know, if you're not into the regular rose maintenance that we all think of, talk to Rob. He's got an amazing list of ones that are more durable and that you won't have to put as much maintenance into. Sentimental is one of them. It's just a fantastic color, easy to care for, traditional Floribunda rose.
And I can tell you from experience, having a rose, even a small rose garden in your home, at your house, is wonderful because you know we're always just going in, cutting the roses and bringing them in the house.
Absolutely, very rewarding. Yeah. So ninebark, another fantastic native. I'm sensing a theme here of the plants that we had picked. Ninebark is great. You've got different foliage textures, different foliage colors. There's like Coppertina, I believe, is this one. There's Diablo. It's got a really dark, almost jet black leaf. There's several different smaller leafed varieties that are available now. And the buds will come out nice and pink, and then it's this nice round cluster of white blooms. In the rose family, you can see there if you're familiar with rose family flowers. And as is, beautiful. I believe, our next picture. So Pyracantha, another rose family member, you can see the similarity in the blooms there. Pyracantha is great, a really good drought-tolerant, sun-tolerant plant. And then after the flowers fade, you're actually going to get the orange fruit on them, which I believe is the next picture. So that's a way to get more color in the garden for a longer period of time. You get the blooms first, you know, coming out in spring, late spring, and then the fruit will set in, and those will hold all the way through fall into winter.
And those are great for trellises.
Pyracantha are great for training up a wall on a trellis. Absolutely, you could do them however you want to. I constantly see them on fence on West Ox Road. They're putting Pyracantha along the fence that's going up there near Waples Mill Road.
Oh, cool. Okay, next. I think we've got another one or two shots that we can show. There we go.
Spirea, great foundation plant. It is deciduous, but absolutely wonderful in front of the home. You're going to get really long bloom time out of it. You can cut it back and get a second bloom out of it. There's a lot of new varieties that will actually give you that double bloom as well.
That's great. Let's do one more.
And Althea. So there's our woody structured shrub form hibiscus. Again, we said we were going to see a few different types of hibiscus. These are fantastic plants. Some of the Rose of Sharon's is the common name for them, will get quite big. Some of them, like this one, will stay a little bit tidier and smaller. But fantastic plants. My neighbors behind me have one that every year goes into full bloom, and right as it does, they prune all of the blossoms off. And every year I think they're crazy, and then 3 weeks later it goes back into bloom again and lasts all the way into October.
That's great. All right, we're going to take a break. And I do want to mention we are throwing a lot of names at you here.
We are.
So you can go to our website. It should be up later this afternoon, hopefully, if not, in the next day or two. You can watch the show. We have all of our shows archived on our website, merrifieldgardencenter.com. And there's a little icon you can click on to get what we call our outline. But all of the plants are listed there with just some of the notes of the characteristics.
And you can always come in at Fair Oaks and visit me Sunday through Thursday are my typical hours. You're more than welcome to come in at any time, and I can go over the plant list with you as well.
Great. And at all of our locations, we've got
absolutely
wonderful assortment of plants throughout. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. shopping for your plants there at Merrifield Garden Center. Come get a wagon load of plants.
That's right, or a bigger cart if you need.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It was out there in the shrubs yesterday, and it's just seeing new plants coming in and that type of thing. It's just wonderful.
It's nice at this time of year too to be able to walk in and see new, fresh plants, and things aren't looking tired.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get back to we're still on shrubs, right?
Still on shrubs. I think the one we're going to start with is hydrangea. This is Hydrangea paniculata. This is limelight, one of my favorites. There's several different varieties of paniculatas, so I won't go through all of them. But paniculata refers to the type of bloom. It's a panicle hydrangea, which is why it's got that cone-shaped blossom. Some of you may be very familiar with the lace caps or like the mop head forms. So this has more of a cone-shaped bloom, but we're very familiar with panicle hydrangeas as being able to tolerate and enjoy full sun more than some of the other varieties. That's not to say that the macrophyllus won't enjoy full sun. Some of them certainly will. But panicle hydrangeas are notorious for loving the full sun and doing really, really well. Limelight especially. I've seen some really ancient limelight hydrangeas that are in full sun that do extremely well.
Great.
And great for dried blossoms to cut and take into the house too.
Absolutely.
You were talking about having a nice rose garden. That's a great addition.
Right.
Butterfly bush. So we talked about butterfly weed as the perennial. This is butterfly bush as a shrub. Really good butterfly attractant. Fantastic color in the garden, and there's so many different forms. This is, I believe, Pink Delight, which is one of the Lo and Behold series. You know, the original butterfly bushes that we were planting, like Black Knight, they get a little bit taller, 4 or 5 foot, and you cut them down in the early spring. Some of the new Lo and Beholds will stay really small.
We've got some new dwarf varieties coming in, right?
Exactly. Blue Chips, the Purple Haze, those are all dwarf varieties that are going to stay much lower in the garden.
It amazes me all the advances they've made in plants, you know, the different varieties, and you know, there's
every
just
week
so
it
many to
seems
choose
like,
from.
Exactly.
Right.
Every week there's a new introduction, and it's very,
wonderful.
very difficult to keep up with sometimes.
Okay, our next.
Crepe Myrtle, there you
favorites.
go, talking about new introductions. So this is one of the Magic series, which is fantastic. A lot of people are looking for that, you know, in-between size. They don't want a tree, but they also don't want a shrub. They want a small tree. So the new Magic series is fantastic because they'll get 6 to 8 foot in maturity. It's Michael Durr's introduction, and there's several different varieties of them. Crepe myrtles are fantastic. You know, for shrub, for color, full sun, long flowering time, you're going to get anywhere from 70 to 100 days of bloom time out of these plants. They're going to soak up the full sun. They're very tropical looking. You're going to get loaded with flower color on them. And like I said, there's definitely different varieties. There's different varieties that are going to have smaller leaves and look like a more dense plant. Pocomoke, the Dazzle series, those are just 2 examples of shrub forms that have been coming out that are extremely popular.
Well, and it's so nice to look to midsummer. You know, you can look forward to the crepe myrtles coming into bloom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at any place you've got a need for tropical effect, but you don't want to have to be planting every year with annuals or tropicals. Crepe myrtles are a great option around a poolside, you know, in front of the home where you just have a lot more container plants and you want more of that tropical feel. It's a great plant for
Yeah,
that.
it really is. It really is. And again, like you said, it can be a shrub, it can be a tree.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
And you can never have too much crepe myrtle.
That's true.
You can never have too much.
Very true.
Abelia, so this is Kaleidoscope Abelia. We chose this one because we wanted to talk about a foliage plant. But that being said, I mean, this is a fantastic foliage texture, foliage color. This is a really nice 3x3 rounded, tidy shrub, no maintenance. But really, when I first fell in love with Abelia, it was just the plain glossy Abelia, which just has a green leaf. But it flowers from April through October, and it's these little delicate white blooms that come out. They're trumpet-shaped. It's great for insect attractant, but it's also one of those kind of set-it-and-forget-it type plants where you don't have to do much maintenance, and no matter what you do, it's going to look beautiful. And then they started coming out with all these variegated varieties. There's Kaleidoscope, Silver Anniversary, Radiance, really, really good foliage plants, and you can see that bright neon yellow texture. Or that color rather, is really good color contrast, especially up against like a blue background, which I believe the next picture might be. Okay, so that's Tiger Eye Sumac. That's, again, cultivar off of a native plant, really good leaf texture, really bright neon color, just as durable as can be, is going to soak up the full sun. You're going to get nice orange to scarlet color in the new growth. I believe the next picture might be
Get yucca coming up. Yes.
So yucca, another one for really good foliage color, bright contrast, different type of texture. You can see that upright strapping foliage to it, and then it's going to put out a big bloom spike that will attract a beautiful yucca moth, which a lot of people think is a butterfly because it's so beautiful.
And I think our next picture, maybe what you're looking for.
There you go. That's the blue. So you could just imagine that blue spruce. And now this is not just a picture of a blue spruce, a tree. This is a globular form. This is globosa, which is a shrub form. This is going to be a nice 3x3, 4x4 rounded shrub. What a great way to get blue in the garden, especially if you've got some of those brighter yellows that we were just showing. You can imagine how much those are going to set each other off in the landscape. And different foliage texture as well. I mean, having that needle leaf texture in the garden is fantastic.
It is. It's beautiful. All right, let's do a tree or two before we go.
Sure.
Okay.
One of my favorites on the planet, paperbark maple, a 4-season interest tree. You can see it's a small to medium-sized tree. Great for providing shade over a patio or over a front porch or something. If we flip to the next picture, you can see the 4th season of interest here. They call it paperbark for a reason. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. You can imagine having one of those in your front yard, and in Virginia where we get some snow in the wintertime.
Oh, yes.
You get some white background for that. You get a little bit of water on the bark, and the color just pops.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back with more trees, and then we're going to get the tropicals too.
Absolutely.
More to come. Okay, let's get back to trees. We're on trees, right?
We were talking about the paperbark maple, and we showed the 4th season of interest in the winter, what the bark is going to look like. I just wanted to highlight its fall color is spectacular too. You get everything from some orange to scarlet red in the foliage, and we don't have a picture of that, but the bark is typically enough that people are sold on the tree. And it's a beautiful, beautiful bark in the wintertime.
I love peeling bark.
Yeah, fantastic 4-season tree, especially when you want to put in a river birch or something like that, but you maybe don't quite have the space.
Right.
And, this is a fantastic alternative.
Yeah. Okay.
So Chinese pistache, this is one of my favorite trees over the past few years. I've really been turned on to this tree by the hot summers that we've had over the past few years. This is taken right around the corner from the garden center. The entire street is lined with these trees. Every single one of them looks like that. And they were planted about 7 years ago.
That
they grew extremely fast to get to that point. Nobody waters them. Nobody prunes them. They all look like that. And then if you flip to the next picture here, that's the fall color on the plant. So we as a landscape industry would not even be familiar with this plant if it wasn't for Bonnie Appleton, who was one of the greatest tree stewards of our time, who passed away last year. But thankfully, she was able to get this tree into the landscaping industry first, because this is an unbelievable tree that most people are really not familiar with. It does not produce a pistachio.
Right.
Just so we're clear on that.
Good.
Don't get too excited. But and the next tree that we have to discuss is golden rain tree. I know as you get closer into the city on Route 50, you're going to start seeing a lot of these as street trees. That is because it's such a pollution-tolerant tree. It loves full sun. It's this perfectly rounded, nice, lollipop-shaped tree. It's a small to medium-sized tree. You can see it doing really well there in my neighborhood in front of a townhome. These are actually the seed pods on the tree, which is what I believe gives it the name golden rain tree, because when the flowers go to seed, the seeds hang down a little bit. It looks more like golden rain. But the blooms that come on in like late May, early June is very similar to crepe myrtle. It's got that cone-shaped, panicle-shaped blossom, and they're bright yellow, even a little bit brighter than that. Speaking of crepe myrtle, so another...
It's the tree form.
Exactly. Another form of crepe myrtle, the tree. Both the zuni on the left, which is the small to medium size, you're looking at 8 to 12, maybe 15-foot mature height, versus the Natchez or high cotton on the right there. Just absolutely fantastic tree. You've got so many different varieties, so many different flower colors. You can see great for a really small area. If you've got a big area next to home, it can absolutely provide shade for a home in addition to being happy in the full sun. And then if you flip to the next slide, I believe we've got, so there's your, again, 4th season interest. And crepe myrtles also have fantastic fall color. So it truly is a great 4-season tree. Same thing with that. You get a little bit of rainfall or you get some snow on the ground and get that bark wet so it brightens up the color a little bit, and then you got a white backdrop. You can imagine how beautiful that is in the wintertime.
Okay. Hydrangea.
And more hydrangea, exactly. So they're not just shrubs. You can see this is still a panicle form of hydrangea. It's got that cone-shaped bloom. But hydrangeas as a tree form are fantastic trees in the landscape. When you've got that area that you say, hey, I want a tree, but I really can't have anything taller than 6 or 8 foot.
This is a small tree.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of options for that. You've got lilacs on standard trunks, but hydrangea trees are phenomenal for those small, tight spaces, especially if you've got a lot of sun.
Okay.
Red maple. So red maple is one of our most prolific native trees. Fantastic red fall color. Also very discreet, but nice red spring flowering color as well. But you can see, I mean, just there, look, this tree is just a juvenile red maple, but already providing good shade on that parking space. And, you know, great specimen for a front yard if you want to shade the home. Just an absolutely fantastic rounded tree. You'll see a good, nice, rounded shade-providing tree in a good amount of time.
Right.
An oaks, that's a willow oak. You can see what that oak is providing for that home. I mean, this is in the middle of farmland, North Carolina. Really a lot of open country there, not a lot of shade. And look, that house is perfectly in the shade by that tree and is there all day.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, that's certainly that's a big oak, but we can definitely, you know, you've got some oaks that will be a little bit smaller, more appropriate for a suburban landscape, but really good shade-providing trees. Excellent drought tolerance out of them.
Great. Okay, a couple more trees.
Zelkova, so this is one of my favorites. Really good street tree, as you can see there. That whole street is lined with Zelkova, providing excellent shade for those homes. You'll see they're very pollution tolerant. There's a row of Zelkovas that's on Route 28 on the east side of the highway. Do extremely well with no maintenance. Look just like that. Even these trees have not been pruned to look like that. And Zelkova is nice. It's in the elm family, so you do get a little bit of a bark exfoliating out of it. It's also got a small leaf, so even though those look like they're providing heavy shade, they still will allow a little bit of light to penetrate through the canopy. And it's not a huge tree. It's a good medium-sized shade-providing tree.
Great. Okay, a couple more. We have a couple more trees, I believe.
I think we do.
Yep, I think we've got 3 more, maybe. Let's see. There we go.
So ginkgo, ginkgo is another really good drought-tolerant, pollution-tolerant tree. You've seen a lot more of those going into the city. Can't say enough for the leaf texture. You know, this is a plant that we once thought was extinct and now has come back with a vengeance.
I was telling Michael about I took a horticulture course in college. We were selling ginkgos and the professor was saying, oh, they're extinct.
Yeah,
like, no, they're
exactly.
not.
Exactly. Super close, but
not anymore.
Not quite there. And ginkgos have an amazing gold fall color. It is not a pale, sickly-looking yellow. It is a bright, beautiful gold. That's a great color to get in the fall landscape.
Great. 2 more.
So magnolia, southern magnolia, fantastic evergreen to put out in full sun. Yes, they can get bigger and provide shade. We've got smaller varieties. They soak up the full sun and will be beautiful. They'll flower for you. Big 8 to 12-inch diameter blooms on them and very, very fragrant. Just a wonderful way to break up. You know, if you had a evergreen screen and you needed privacy, this would be a great plant to put in there. If you had a row of Leyland cypress or green giant arborvitae, you could put one of these in the center as a focal plant that would give you that blossoming in addition.
Right. Okay.
And then the last one here, Norway spruce. And I really just wanted to highlight conifers in general by putting this in there. This is in the middle of an open area, full sun from sun up till sundown. But conifers in general are extremely intelligent trees. They're going to actually take their water supply from the previous year, and that is what's going to determine this year's growth. So they will actually preserve water and know that they can't put out too much growth this year, you know, even if they're getting a good rain supply this year. So they're fantastic for drought-ridden areas and full sun environments.
That's great. Well, we're going to switch to tropicals, but we're going to take a break, and we'll make you wait just a couple of minutes for that. But it'll be worth it.
So here we've got a few different plant samples with us. This is a croton. which we're going to be highlighting in this next segment here. But crotons are fantastic. There's a lot of different leaf textures, a lot of different color varieties. Typically, you're going to find these plants in the tropical greenhouse, and a lot of people will use these as house plants. One of the things I love to emphasize is we're planting annuals that are going to die in the wintertime anyway, and then replanting them next year. Why not go into the greenhouse and broaden our scope of what plants we can use? This is a fantastic landscape plant. It's great to get color in the garden. It's a different leaf texture than what you would typically find as an annual. And it's very drought tolerant, very full sun loving, and you're going to get a lot of different red and orange tones in it as well. I don't know if we can just zoom over here. We've got a really good color contrast, just a little bit lower. So this is a neon pothos, and then right here next to it, let me see if I can.
There you go.
There you go. So the neon pothos, and then right here next to it is a purple wandering Jew. These are two fantastic color contrasts. Again, you're going to typically find these in the tropical greenhouse. And let me see if I can angle that a little bit more. So these are two plants you would typically find in the tropical greenhouse. But again, if we're planting annuals that we're going to have to replant from year to year, why not expand what we're able to plant in the garden? Look at the color contrast here. This wandering Jew, the purple plant, I've used in my garden as a ground cover and had it doing exactly what I needed by midsummer because it grows so quickly. Pothos is the same way. So, I mean, absolutely fantastic options if you just go inside to where there's tropicals that we might not ordinarily use.
Yeah. When you think about it, if you're going to replace annuals anyway.
Exactly. Give ourselves more options.
Okay. We've got a few. Oh, there's the Dusty Miller.
There's the Dusty Miller we were talking about earlier. That's, again, you know, fantastic texture. You really just want to come in there and try and pet the leaf a little bit because it is fuzzy, just like the lamb's ear. It's wonderful.
We've got a few pictures. I can't believe this hour has flown by. So another
hibiscus. So this is the tropical hibiscus, which again we talked about a perennial and a shrub form. So this one wouldn't make it through the wintertime unless you bring it in the home, which a lot of people do. If you have a sunny window, you can keep them blooming through the wintertime, and it's quite rewarding. It's nice because the tropical hibiscus will get in a small 6-inch, 8-inch shrub form container. We also get them in as standard tree form, which is what a lot of people will opt to bring into the house. Sometimes you'll even find them with like a braided trunk, which is very cool. And there's a lot of different color varieties out of them.
Can we actually go? Oh, there we go. We're going back.
So this is the bromeliad. Bromeliad's a fantastic rainforest plant. That's not the flower that you're looking at. The flower comes out of those little crotch angles of that red bract. The bract is actually just a modified leaf that's going to subtend the flower. The flowers that come out are anywhere from a bright, vivid purple to a blue color. And they'll last for a little bit of time, but the bract lasts for a very long time. So you'll get color out of this plant for a lot longer than you will other plants.
And the watering is a little different on those.
Watering, there's the tank is the reservoir. So you actually need to water inside of that red bract and let it drip down into the tank of the plant.
Forgot about that as I was putting one in the car and it spilled all over me.
Absolutely. It'll get you every time.
Okay.
Ginger. So this is actually a picture I took of wild ginger actually in the rainforest. That is what the green naturalized ginger would look like, the bloom. Fantastic tropical plant. You can see the green foliage right below it and how big and beautiful it is, almost like an elephant ear. One of my favorite plants that we have at the garden center is a variegated form of ginger. So it's got that green, but it's got a white variegation, and the leaf is a really good foliage plant. And then should you be so fortunate to get the bloom, you know, you have that color as well, which a lot of people just plant it as a foliage plant.
That's great.
Tibucina, princess flower, empress flower, very velvety, soft purple. Bloom, really tough color to get in the landscape. You know, again, this is something we get in shrub and tree form. A lot of people will opt to put these around pool decks in containers for whatever reason. It's just a great tropical plant. The buds come out kind of a bright scarlety red to orange, and then they open up to that purple. And the leaves are just like that of the Dusty Miller or lamb's ear. The leaves on the plant are very soft, have that little fuzz to them.
Just want to touch them.
Yeah. So Mandevilla, this is actually years and years ago, my wife and I, one of our first places together, this is our apartment, and we backed up right to the playground where children were playing all the time. So we wanted a little bit of privacy, but we weren't allowed to mount anything up there. So that's what we did. We put twine up in Mandevilla, and a month later, that entire back porch was covered with Mandevilla. If you go to the next picture there, I think we've got a close-up of the bloom. And you can see the leaves behind are a really nice, deep, glossy texture. This is a variety called Alice DuPont, one of my favorites. But an extremely fast-growing tropical vine, and you could see there, I think that was either late May or early June, really, because I planted those at the end of April. And they were already almost a third of the way covered that back porch. They grow extremely quickly. And there's pothos, so that's another pothos that we had, we had talked about the neon pothos that we brought to the
It's got a little bit more variegation in it.
Exactly. So that's a golden variegated pothos. There's also the white variegation they call Marble Queen. But just really good texture, really good ground cover vines you can put in the landscape that you can use throughout the year if you're going to plant annuals.
That's great. A couple more?
Schefflera, this is one of my favorites. You've got a lot of different leaf sizes and textures. That's a smaller leaf variety with good variegation color in it. If you ever get down to Florida, you'll see they use these as hedges in parking lots. But it's a really good way to get some different leaf texture, different color in the landscape.
To me, it's one of the classic houseplants.
Absolutely. Great houseplant. Yes, absolutely. And there's that croton we were talking about, and you can see a different color on this one. Why not? Why not use that as an annual in the landscape if you're going to be planting stuff that's going to perish in the wintertime anyway? This is a fantastic plant. Really, really drought tolerant, loves the full sun, is going to give you good leaf texture, good color.
And quickly?
And there's that wandering Jew that I was saying is such a good ground cover you can use as well. And we do sell that in annuals, and people do plant that regularly as annuals.
That's great. Michael, thank you so much for being here. We have run out of time. Again, go to the website, come in and see Michael. Not today,
any of our plant experts at any of our stores.
You're great.
Absolutely.
Next week, David will be here. We're talking about the summer garden. So that's generic enough. He can talk just about anything in the summer garden.
There you go.
So have a great week. We'll see you next time.